in the background, lurking in the background, I can see her right now, is Deb Humphreys. And Deb is going to be actually co-hosting or hosting the next 2 hours of this particular segment. And, it's interesting listening to the presenters and listening to some of the responses and questions and all of that kind of thing. There is definitely another segment that comes into employment, and that's looking at yourself as a prospective employee and looking at your life and where you want to go. Because, as a candidate, let's put it that way, or a job seeker, you don't have to take the first thing that comes into mind. You can be a consumer. You can look at fit. You can look at see how it's going to affect your life and your family's lives and the people around you. And oftentimes that is so overlooked. And that is why I think this next upcoming 2 hours is critically important, and why we wanted it here in the employment sector, just simply because of the fact that it affects all of us. And I'd like to introduce Deb Humphreys, my good friend with Waypoint Coaching. And Deb is principal of Waypoint. She is a life coach. She is a career coach. She is a person that takes life seriously and wants to make sure that those around her and the people that she coaches have the best opportunities and the best quality of life that they can. She has some interesting guests that she's brought with her today, veterans. She's brought veterans spouse. She's brought a number of people I think that you're going to find absolutely fascinating. But more importantly than that, on this cold day, you're going to find some very warm information that will go ahead and I think help you in the years to come. So without me chiming in anymore, I'd like to introduce Deb Humphreys. Deb, it's all yours.
Thanks, Alan, and welcome everybody, and happy early Veterans Day to those of you that are listening, watching. I'm honored to be here, and I hope that the next couple hours we can get some energy going to sort of celebrate what we have to look forward in the future as far as transitions and changes, and knowing that we can influence that. So I have some other guests with me today that I want to introduce. First of all, and Dan Sheehan, he is a friend of my family. My son and Dan served together in the Marine Corps. Dan is a Cobra pilot, and my son was a Huey pilot. I'm not sure I know all the stories of these two getting together, but they keep sort of slipping out, and I'm sort of delighted to know that Dan is still nearby. He's living in Southern California, San Diego. Is that correct, Dan? Dan,
that's correct.
Okay, good. He's going to offer his perspective as a Marine pilot, having been in almost how many years, Dan?
I was in for about 12 years.
Yeah, 12 years. And then he returned to civilian life, and he has had quite an adventure with his own transition, and has discovered a part of himself that he's developing now with being an author of 2 books, working on his 3rd one. You want to say a bit about that as far as what these books are, and then we can move forward?
Sure. Thank you very much, Deb, for the introduction. And yes, I never really expected to be writing books. So in line with the whole concept of transition, sometimes they kind of blindside you, and other times they're planned and you go through with them that way. But I was kind of blindsided by writing, and ended up writing my first book. It's titled After Action, as a means to process my own experiences in Iraq in 2003 and 4, and to try and figure out what had come home with me from Iraq, because I wasn't the same person that I was before those experiences, and I needed to find out what those changes were and what was going on with myself. And then I turned from that book and wrote a second one called Continuing Actions, which takes a much higher altitude view of the transition as part of the normal warrior's journey throughout history, across cultures. There have been the challenges of coming home have always been understood as unavoidable and predictable. And so a lot of cultures had traditions and customs in place to assist their veterans through those. We don't. And we as Americans as a whole don't have those sorts of customs. And so we have to make them up on our own. And so that was the big focus of my second book, Continuing Actions.
It's a fascinating read. And interestingly enough, we have Kate Turek as another guest who is representing our Southern California American Indian services. And Kate, I think about American Indians with rituals and with transitions. And do you want to say a word about that just real quickly, and then we'll move forward? But Kate's going to have an opportunity to tell more about her services in just a little bit. But I think that she must hear a lot about what Dan is beginning to talk about. Can you say something about that, Kate? Oh, you need to unmute. Okay. There you go.
I couldn't hear half of what you were saying because it completely froze on me.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, it completely froze. So, did you want me to talk about?
Actually, I was making reference to American Indians because Dan Sheehan is an author, and he has written about his experience in coming back using a lot of literature and references to mythology and ritual and tradition, and how that's missing today as veterans come home. We do have some celebrations, some people that are greeters and other types of rituals, but I just thought this is pretty cool that you're on with us today. Then you might have some other insight. I don't know whether you build that into your. Kate is a social worker who provides transition coaching, as I do.
We do. We actually do a lot of things. We call them blessings, and we do prayers usually prior to doing events like this. Normally, we do a blessing over all the people. There's a specific prayer that we do, but it just depends on the tribe and the people that are part of whatever blessing we're trying to provide for a group of people. So
good. Well, we'll talk more about that later, but I'm so glad you're here. I also, before I get started with my part of the program, want to introduce Josh Wright, who is going to be speaking later as well as a returning veteran. And Josh has moved from military life to, oh, there you are. I was hoping we'd be able to see your face. Josh has moved forward from military to civilian life. He's got a master's degree in management and is now working as a general manager for Motel 6. So we're going to hear more from Josh. But Josh, do you want to say a howdy to everybody, just to so people know that you're on here?
Absolutely. I'll say hi. Hello.
Okay, you calling from work today?
I am. I was working and sitting on the call at the same time. A lot of things going on today, but
all righty.
Here.
Well, we'll look forward to hearing more from you in just a little bit.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let me just give you an idea about what we're going to cover in the next couple of hours. I am as you know already, a Marine Corps mom, and my son has been back now for a number of years. He's now working with the State Department and living in the DC area. But he was an inspiration to me in so much of his way that he handled transitions. And Dan knows that he is a kind of guy that will throw a party anywhere in the world now. He can get something going anywhere in his travels. And I think that bond, that military bond, that sense of immediate family has been so helpful to him and for me as a mother to know that he is supported in where he's going to sometimes scary places. So it's something that grounds me in trusting the military training and just the lifestyle and the fellowship that's there. So what we're going to do this afternoon is to sort of walk through a model of transition that has worked well in my former work with within the industry of aerospace. I retired from the Aerospace Corporation in El Segundo, California, which is not, they don't make things, but they help. They're like wise sages that help other folks that do make the satellites and the spacecraft make sure that they are working the way they should. So they were wise enough also as an organization to realize the value of not just promoting people into management, but by doing something to help with that transition. Because there are things that have happened in my experience as being a leadership coach within the Aerospace Corporation, where I have been sort of embarrassed for some of the military coming back and using the same kind of jargon and trying to show up in a way that was distracting rather than engaging with their workforce. So I think the more that we can help people understand that there is a way to make these kinds of transitions that is thoughtful and reflective and that can have stronger benefit. So I don't see any of my other speakers on yet. They're going to be speaking after Dan and I have a chance to walk you through a model that I have found quite useful in understanding this natural flow of transitions. So let's begin to bring this to life a little bit. Okay. Yeah, I think the point about transitions, if you don't remember anything else or care about anything else, it's not an event that you turn on and turn off. It is a flow. It's a natural flow that has a sense of order. And the more that you can pay attention to that, I think the more the results will actually show up. And for me, I mean, for transitions, this is not something that happens just at midlife. My husband Dave and I have had many transitions in moving. We moved across the country to follow our son. Actually, he was at Camp Pendleton at the time. And that brought us from Ohio to California. So, I mean, that was a huge transition. And moving from former work to the Aerospace Corporation, I had never worked with any aerospace engineers before that. But trusting the fact that my skills and background were transferable made it that kind of an adjustment easier and had a better flow to it for me anyway. Dan, do you want to jump in here as far as this?
Sure. So the concept, kind of the overview of my experiences my experience transitioning out of the military. Deb, you mentioned that transitions are kind of ongoing. They happen at various life stages and at various places. It almost felt to me as though getting out of the military was my first real transition. And that happened for me. Like I said, I was in for about 12 years. And that came about, I was 30, 35, 36 when I got out. And I guess that's about right. And that felt like the first major kind of life transition. Going into the military didn't feel much like a life transition because, while yes, I did volunteer, the transition wasn't voluntary. You go through such an intense indoctrination into the military, certainly into the Marine Corps, that there wasn't a whole lot of voluntary changing going on. It was, you did what you were told, and there were left and right parameters that you stayed within, and life worked out really well as long as you stayed in there. So hitting that kind of first transition later on really was an eye-opener to me, and I didn't expect it. I didn't know that it would be so kind of discombobulating to walk away from the military and suddenly realize that now I need to figure out who I am, who and what am I? And those sorts of I hesitate to say existential questions because they're not that deep, but there's a sense of being kind of adrift when you do leave the military, because it's been such a mooring point for you for years, that it really was. It definitely took time and it took some effort to figure out what my new left and right lateral limits were. Where did I want to go? What did I want to do? I had a lot of skills, but I didn't necessarily want to use them the way that I was trained to. So there's a whole lot of transition that has to happen at a personal level, but also skills. Yes, there are transferable skills that come with you out of the military, but finding out how to apply them in your particular industry is something that requires some thought and it requires some reflection.
Yeah, and that's really the point, is that a transition is not an event. It is a flow. It is, and the flow from civilian to military back to civilian, it is not a one-time event. There'll be that kind of need throughout life. So the more we can sort of understand that, the order of that, what to expect, what resources are out there, the better. I mentioned my own circumstances and having to let go of a lot of assumptions about who I am and what I could be. I also had to let go of some of my assumptions as a parent about the military and my own perception about war and what happens in the military. So having to just give myself the opportunity to change my mind, to really learn as much as I can, find my own support systems, really listen to my son and study his pathway, helped me to rebuild trust and to know that he was learning and we were both learning from our experiences. So what we're going to walk through today are these different stages of transition. Some of you may be familiar with William Bridges's work. I find it grounding as far as actually saying, okay, there is a natural flow. It's messy sometimes, but there is a way to be proactive and say, hey, it's okay. This is not going to be forever. But having the energy, having the resources to face any kind of life transition requires sometimes just a letting go process. And so that's the first thing that we take a look at. And I'm right now, I'm volunteering my time with returning veterans and their families. I really spend time in helping them take a look at what is it that you need to let go of in order to move forward and think differently. It doesn't mean you let go of everything. In fact, there's lots of things you want to really trust as being your anchors. But the letting go part is a place to start. And then hanging out with that uncertainty, that neutral zone, or that sort of scary time of, wow, I'm not there yet. What am I going to do for the next stage of my life? How am I going to do it? Who's going to support me in this? So the neutral zone is sort of that in-between stage in order to move forward to the new beginning. We're going to go through each of these different stages a little more, and I really want to encourage, since it's a small group today, to have some interaction from those of you that are online. So if you can be sort of thinking about your own experience, that would be helpful. And Dan is going to help bring some of this to life. Starting with yourself, though, is important to make sure you have what you need to face this. It's sort of exhausting. I think change is one of the most stressful times, any kind of a change. Changing work, family changes. Morgan Boyd may be on our call soon. He just had another new baby. So he, a new child, just being able to say, okay, what am I going to do to prepare myself for this change? And taking care of yourself is important. And that means slowing down. It means reflecting, doing a little audit about who you have to support you, and getting ready to get moving with this. Morgan, do you remember, or Dan, did you have some things you did to be sure that you were prepared for this change?
I did, and much of what I did along my own transition was kind of stumbling through, kind of pin the tail on the donkey style. I didn't really know what I was doing. All I knew was that I needed to make some changes. But you make an interesting point about self-care as a priority and a necessity. That starts as a foundation that allows you to, if you're taking care of yourself, then it gives you, I'm not going to get too far into the hierarchy of needs, but it gives you the ability to move up in that hierarchy and get closer to things, that understanding what it is you really want to attain from a self-esteem standpoint, or a personal growth standpoint. You can't do that if you're not taking care of yourself. So that means, and if you're coming from the military, you have some background in physical fitness. Not everybody is a marathon runner. Not everybody's an Olympic weightlifter. That doesn't matter. Those are simple. Those are outliers. The baseline of using exercise as a basic component of every day really sets you up for success. And it does a lot for you from a physiological standpoint, of just dealing with stress and calming yourself. But it works on mental and emotional levels as well, that you may not even recognize you need. And so self-care, including exercise, it's critical. Not to get too deep into it, but on the other side of that, sleep. Sleep is a tremendous benefit for us. And I know that I slept terribly in the Marine Corps. I would get up at night. I'd do all sorts of weird stuff. I could sleep at the drop of a hat. We pride ourselves on being able to sleep in strange conditions, strange contorted positions underneath the helicopter, weird places on the ship. It didn't matter if you had a couple seconds of downtime, you went to sleep. But that wasn't really restful slumber. And you can really dig yourself into a hole. And if you're coming off of any sort of schedule where your circadian rhythms have been messed with, such as flying nights, where you're not supposed to get up until a certain period of time. And then when you get back, you're supposed to go to sleep right before the sun comes up. Whatever those things are, that really messes with you. And you need to give yourself some time and put forth some effort to reestablish your circadian rhythms, reestablish your baseline, and make sure you're getting restful sleep. You cannot really engage in some of this higher level thinking that you want to be doing for your transition, assessing who you are and what sort of skills you really want to move forward into your next career with. You really can't do that if you're operating from a sleep deficit. So that's a real important thing. So exercise, sleep, and diet. I'm sure there are some good dietitians on here who can tell you about what you should and shouldn't be eating. But
yeah, I think that, and that's why I like to start with this is really the basic foundation of transition, is that it's got to start with ourselves. What are we doing to take care of ourselves with respect to our physical well-being and our emotional well-being? So I find that the nature itself for me is very grounding in helping me understand transition and bring it to life for others. I sometimes use this picture as my background in my Zoom coaching meetings, because there is a lot in it when you think about the importance of self-care. And along with that, the main part of self-care, not only physically, but also is to get your support systems in place. You'll notice in the Vineyard that there are structures to help support those vines and those plants in order for them to begin to thrive and bear fruit. So that having that kind of structure helps to really help you move forward, and also to think in terms of freeing up that energy so that you can put it toward the hard work of making a change. Don't do it alone. Whatever you can do to bring other folks along with you and get that support system in place will help you to revitalize and to feel that you do have the energy to move forward. Anybody have some thoughts about letting go and what things you might need to think of as far as what is it that I must let go of? For me personally, I was letting go of some beliefs, some assumptions that I had about the military, letting go of fears, although that never really went away, but just being able to move forward in a way that was healthy rather than bringing me down. Kate, did you want to offer anything about the whole letting go process of the people that you're working with? And Kate is also working with returning veterans and families. Like for a family, what might they need to let go of?
In the case of veterans, I actually haven't had too much time with veterans in my current position, but in my prior position, it was mostly just letting go of pain. A lot of them came back and they were just really upset, like about other things that were happening in their life or what they were coming back to, and people in their lives or people coming in and out of their lives. So I think it was, it's more of a letting go of the fact that things might have changed and you're coming back to something that's very, very different. You've been gone for a while, you've come back. So in my current position, having not had to deal with anyone coming back from anywhere or dealing with veterans in general, I really haven't had that experience in the current position. But yeah, prior positions, it was mostly just having to deal with overcoming change more than anything.
Okay, thank you. Josh, did you want to offer something about your own experience and as a veteran in letting go in order to move forward? There you go.
Okay, there we go. That definitely was a hard thing for me, especially with 15 years in the Army and then jumping out of that scenario into the civilian lifestyle. It was like, what's going on here? So definitely letting go of what you're used to and giving yourself time to learn something new is important. So, and the time thing is the biggest piece, because as vets, we like to, hey, I want to jump in that and master it today. And that's not easy. So definitely, definitely letting go and understanding that it's going to take time to move forward and get to the level you want to is important.
Thank you. Alan McKean and I work together with veterans there at his establishment, and we have found in preparing somebody, once they've gone through some self-awareness building and who they are and what they have to offer, part of the letting go also has to do with some of the habits, some of the behaviors, some of the language that the military is how you connect with your buddies, and that may not fit in the workplace. And also so many military that come into our area here in the Central Coast may have originally been from a large city, and all of a sudden they choose to stay here in the Central Coast, which is small town, different kind of culture. Letting go of some of the habits, letting go of some of the expectations that they might have had when they were in a big city, letting go of some of the language and how they show up and how they hang out to fit a small business culture. You know, Alan, you heard from a lot of small businesses earlier about what their needs are for work, and the opportunity to help them for those of us that coach veterans to be able to say, hey, you know, I'm hearing a lot of jargon here. Your resume's got a lot of jargon in it. They'll never know what the heck you really can do. So it is sometimes a letting go of the words, letting go of the habits, and the beliefs.
Well, I
Okay.
agree. I totally agree with you.
Mhm.
It is that way sometimes, and it depends upon each veteran is different. Each veteran has their own individual experience in his or her service. Um, it depends where you were, what you were doing. The whole thing. It's a whole, lifestyle as far as what you're doing in the service. But at the same time, on small businesses, especially on the hiring and everything else, they often get overlooked. And a lot of veterans want to go for either corporations, they want some security, they want this, they want that. But oftentimes, small businesses do get overlooked. In sending veterans to small businesses, I always have them talk to the veteran ahead of times. And
Mhm.
I always make a point to do that because, 80% of the businesses in San Luis Obispo County are 10 people or less. And that comprises the business segment in the county. So you have to go ahead
Yeah.
and make sure that whatever you're sending them to is a good fit in terms of not only their skills, but also their fit. And fit is extremely important here. If you're
Mhm.
going to have somebody who has really severe PTSD issues and that kind of thing, you don't want to send them necessarily into an environment in which is going to have certain triggers. And you just want to make sure that whoever veteran is goes in there and adjusts and adapts and they adapt to each other. So I think your point is very, very well taken, not only in the resume, but also in the fit between the individual and the company itself.
Yeah, and I think that what we can do as coaches we can't do it all. Sometimes our veterans that come to see us aren't ready to move forward until they get the kind of help they need through the uh, the vet center or the other places where they can get the counseling, the therapy. And that's great. I mean, the more resources, that's the message I'd like to send today is that you're not alone in making these transitions. And really determining what is it that keeps you grounded, what are the anchors, what's not changing, what can you do to really trust that you've got something to hang on to that's not going to change. Dan, what worked for you as far as really thinking through what is it that I can really depend on and trust and not, and as I'm experimenting, as I'm beginning to change my perception of who I am today?
So I'm very lucky in that I come from a military family. And so my grandfather was a Navy pilot. My dad was a Navy pilot. And then my younger brother went into the Marine Corps. My wife was a Marine pilot as well. So
I didn't know that. That's cool.
that was kind of my foundation. The thing that would never change was that my family knew me, knew what I'd been through, and would be there for me. And I know, I may not have realized it at the time, but I certainly know now just how much of a gift that is to have such a foundation behind you. But that really freed me to try different stuff and to pitch the whole flying. I flew for a little while as a civilian pilot and then put that all aside, and I became the stay-at-home dad for my kids. While my wife started her second career, and that turned into writing, and I hope to make that the rest of my career. But we'll see how that goes. The anchors for me were family, and when moving forward and trying to figure out what was most important, there became a shift because my youngest, my oldest was born just after I got out of the Marine Corps, and the changes that come, the transitions that come over you as a father or as a parent are they're profound, obviously, and that became a serious anchor for me, in that whatever I did, it had to work for my family. It had to work for the kids, and so it was an easy decision to stop flying and to stay home for several reasons. And one was that it allowed my wife to start her career, which she was passionate about. And it allowed me to have the opportunity to be home with the kids, which I never expected would be an option for me. So being open to that, that has been a tremendous gift to be able to spend that time with them. But yeah, having the anchor in family, and then being able to branch out beyond that, knowing that I was making choices which further supported those anchors and didn't threaten them in any way. And it could have gone a different direction. I mentioned, I was flying as a civilian pilot, as a contractor overseas. And that's a lifestyle which involves a lot of away time, like at least 50% of your time you're gone. And in looking at some of the people that I was working with, I saw some coping mechanisms and projected forward and saw that I could easily be doing that as well. And they weren't healthy. And I made a choice at that point to refocus on the anchors and to think about how my decisions moving forward with this transition were going to impact what was most important in my life. And if family support was what allowed me to have the freedom to try different things, I needed to be in a position to provide that to my kids. And I had to be able to give them that same sort of foundation so that when they hit their own transitions, they can bounce around wherever they go, knowing that our family anchor is stable.
Right. Great examples. You know, I know sometimes veterans, or all of us, we may not have a family support when we really need it sometimes. So thinking in terms of what are the other anchors that we have, and that self-trust is also an anchor. Trusting that you have gotten through change before. You have been able to weather difficult times. Like, just think about what's happening now with COVID and how isolated we are, and we don't have those buddies that we can just go out to lunch with or hang out with. We have them, but just that physical connection, you just can't always have it now. So finding other ways to trust yourself and trusting your ability to just do a little self-audit. So what the heck have I done before to get through this kind of difficult situation? Those are anchors, because we can't always depend on other people to be our anchors. What can we trust about ourselves? So that self-trust can also be one of the anchors. Does anybody else want to offer something before we move forward?
Well, it's interesting listening to Dan, because just like Dan, my family is all military. My dad was a Hellcat pilot in World War II, and we go all the way back to actually the Revolution. There's a destroyer named after our family in the Navy. And so I went through combat in Vietnam for 2 years, that kind of thing. And because of that experience, all of that, my generation before, they're all gone. I'm the last. But both of my sons did 6 deployments each, one with the 10th Mountain, the other with the 25th.
My goodness.
And because of that, I was able to go ahead and use my experience to go ahead and help them, because both of them were, one was 11 Bravo and the other one was a Forward Observer Ranger, and help them with some of their PTSD issues and that kind of thing. So because of that experience that I had and my families and all of that, and what I had learned and had to go through for about 10 years of really interesting times, I think that helped them. And I think that was my duty as a father, to really go ahead and sit down with them and just talk through things and that kind of thing. And for instance, when you have somebody sitting alone in a car for 3 hours, and just go out and sit with them for another 2 hours and do a number of things. And Dan probably feels the same way. There's nothing like an adrenaline rush as you've experienced in combat. No. And just trying to help them through the adrenaline aspect and reclaim, and you can't do that. But I think that as a father, I think that that was one of my duties, and that I think that's an example of using what was an anchor to go ahead and help somebody else.
Thank you, Alan. Just one more quick example about anchors. Again, as veterans make changes from military to different kinds of jobs that are not military related, there are still so many transferable skills that they have that sometimes they may not recognize. So whatever we can do to have people just reflect and say, what have you really learned about yourself that you can do really well? And naming that and say, oh my gosh, I didn't realize that could be transferred into this other new environment. So to me, transferable skills are also anchors. I had to trust that a lot myself personally, moving into an organization of aerospace engineers, and just say, okay, Deb, I don't have the language, I don't understand how satellites go up in space, but I can learn, and I can also use my transferable skills to coach and do other things.
Well, and Deb, I think one of the important distinctions to make there is the difference between hard skills and soft skills. And really, the hard skills are the tactile things. It's the movement of the weapon system. It's the programming. It's whatever your MOS required you to do from an operational standpoint. Those are your hard skills. But that's probably not what you're going to be focusing on moving forward after your transition. You're probably going to be focusing on your soft skills, which are your people skills, your leadership, your ability to take somebody who maybe they're grumpy that day, but you're going to help them see that it's important that they don't act they don't act one way, but act in a different way, and actually get their job done for that period of time. It's those soft skills, I think, and there are plenty of employers here that can chime in, but that's probably what you're going to be hired for. And so understanding the difference between the two, and then focusing on your soft skills, that might be a good starting point.
Thank you, Dan. That brings it to life.
Hey, Dan, I would like to add to that too. I can admit, being a general manager for a property here, I've interviewed a couple of people, and you would not believe the clothing that people show up to an interview in. You would not believe how many people are just not in tune with reality, right? So definitely the soft skills are beneficial out here in the civilian world. When I started, I was 30 minutes early for every shift, and my supervisor, "You're so early, well, I'm actually late, actually, if I really want to look at it." But these are the things that I value the most, especially when I'm looking for employees. And you'd be surprised how the small things matter the most here.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Okay, so when we think about trusting those anchors, there is some work to be done, especially if you're going to want to present yourself with your resume and so forth in a way that's professional. We know in our hearts and souls who we are, but sometimes we have to name it and really think in terms of what kind of skills are we offering here. And as you mentioned, Josh, just having that preparation and thinking through that we all are bringing an enormous amount of talent and technical and transferable and character skills, but we have to name it, because they don't assume that our next step people will understand what we have to offer. Building trust sometimes comes through demonstrating that you have these skills. So again, when we coach our veterans and their families, helping them build that self-trust often starts with the vision. Who am I today? Taking stock of the technical, the transferable, and the character skills. Naming them, being able to translate them into civilian language. I also like to focus on work values. What's really important to you in work and life? Because I was listening to some of your meetings this morning, Alan, with the different employers, and you could sort of sense from their descriptions of their workplace about, okay, what's really important here in this organization? What are the work values? What are the values that they would want to see in a potential employee. So being able to name it, though, is part of what we can do in our helping professions to have a veteran or a family member of veteran be able to actually speak specifically about what's important to them and how does that fit the work culture. Finding out what the work culture is important. What, how are things done around here? And being able to say, okay, is this a good fit for me? And am I a good fit for them? So that's a lot of the coaching process, the practice that we all use, that hopefully veterans that do tune into this later on Facebook or whatever resources they're using to capture some of the learning from today, that they will realize that they do have the power and the opportunity to present themselves in a way that can align with the needs of the organization. So recognizing that there are different kinds of skills, some technical skills can fit in many different kinds of organizations. Transferable skills are the ones that you can take anywhere as well, and character skills. So there's so much that veterans can do to actually name it about what they have to offer. We've talked about the work and life values, exploring that, using literature and wise sages, just, lessons learned from helping to understand who am I today, and community resources.
Deb, could I interject for a moment about the work and life values?
Yeah.
So something that came up to me when I was, or that I became aware of when I was transitioning out, was that my paycheck and my concept of service were wrapped up in my identity as a Marine. So I got some of the emotional and it's belonging. I had a sense of belonging in the Marine Corps, and I belonged to something that was bigger than me. It was a organization focused on service and sacrifice, and that resonated with me, and that was something that really made it rewarding, a very rewarding job. And to top that off, I also got a paycheck for doing it, and so that was great. Everything in one place. I think that when you are transitioning, you may need to separate those two concepts, maybe for a period of time. If you know what you're passionate about and you can do it and earn a paycheck, then great. Go straight for it. But if maybe you just go, all right, I'm going to have to make some widgets for 40 hours a week, and that's not going to fulfill me. That's not going to get me right here, but I can do it. That's going to give me the paycheck. That's going to give me the financial stability. But now I'm going to find a different way to use my skills and get some of that belonging and get some of that feeling of worth, that my time is going into something important. And you can do that just like you do, Deb, through volunteering, or through working with a philanthropic organization. Whatever those things are, you may need to separate the nuts and bolts of earning the living and your passion for a period of time. But if you understand that these transitions are ongoing, and you keep yourself aware of opportunities and you keep yourself flexible, then over time, those two things might come back together into one, and you may end up working and earning a living based off of your passion. And that's, I think, the end result that you really want. Just recognize that could take some time, and it could take multiple steps to get there.
I really like that notion of the passion part. It's, like, what is that inner fire that you have that can be used in so many different ways, and to keep you propelled to grow that trust that change and transition is really exciting. It can be fun. Kate, do you want to add anything to that as far as your work in helping people identify their skills and life values and so forth?
I really liked what Dan had to say prior about the soft and hard skills, because I've come across the same thing, having young people, because we admit people that are 14 and up, young people coming in and they're not aware of what you're supposed to wear or how you're supposed to speak or eye contact or just basic smile on your face when you go into a meeting with another person. And Josh going on about the same thing. It's something I think more people need to learn, especially the youngsters. They really don't seem to understand that. And I also think that people need to be start being more aware of what they look like on social media as well. It's not just how you appear in person, but it's also how you appear on social media. And if you promote yourself in a way that kind of seems a little questionable, when you go in for an interview, you know they've already looked at you. They've already checked your Facebook. They've already looked at all the little extra bits about you.
Look
so
out.
that helps to look into as well, besides just the person-to-person contact that you have with people when you first go out and look for employment.
Very good point. Yeah, and thank goodness that, you know, that we have our resources here in our community, and Kate, in your community. Kate covers a lot of area there. From you want to say how big your expanse is?
Yes. So our main office is in San Diego, and we cover San Diego Imperial. And then my office is in Ventura. We cover Ventura County, Santa Barbara County, San Luis Obispo County, San Benito County, Monterey, Santa Cruz, and Sonoma counties. So a lot of space in between. So if anybody has friends or family that are in those areas and meet the demographic needs that we provide help for, please hit me up.
Josh, do you want to make a mention about what you look for when you're hiring in your position?
There was definitely one aspect. I'm kind of an old school guy, so there was one scenario where a potential employee was looking for a job, and she showed up and she presented a resume. Now, of course, we all know that most job applications are online. There's a process. It has to go through a vetting process. But I just thought that to be so respectful and like upfront. I want to meet the manager. I want to say, hey, I'm looking for this job. What do I need to do? I want to do a face-to-face. I just thought that upfront and personal, up close and personal transaction was very separate from the rest. You know, of course, my system that we have for our company, I can go in and just look at a bunch of resumes, but for her to walk it to the door and say, hey, I'm looking for a job. Here's my resume. I've already applied. I'm very interested. I was like, wow. Whoa, you know, that used to be the old school way of getting a job. Brought the resume, you spoke to the employer. If they were hiring, they liked you on the spot, you could potentially get a job then. So that was one of the things. What separates you from the rest? You know, that's my thing. When I look at your resume, what would separate your resume from the Google template? You know, did you make an effort to want to get this job? So those are some of my pointers.
Thank you. All right, let's move forward here. Okay, so we've talked a lot about, okay, how do we prepare ourselves for making transitions? And we've talked about really honoring the past and naming it, to actually take stock about what do I have to offer? Who am I today? And you know, in being able to just hang out in that uncertain stage of exploration long enough that you can speak clearly with your potential employer about what it is you can do for them, not what they can do for you. So doing that kind of a self-assessment should give you an opportunity to say, okay, what's out there? How can I begin to know the world of work and the work environment and make a good choice about that? So I heard in some of the sessions I sat in this morning, Alan, that you could really pick up a lot. And I'm glad people were asking questions like, what does it take to fit in here? What does it take to you know, what are you looking for? Not just can you do the job, but are you a good fit?
Yeah, I agree with that. As I said earlier, I always tell my candidates you're a consumer. You don't, unless you're absolutely have to have it, which we all have that, have to have money tomorrow morning. Um, you're a consumer. I mean, nobody is shoving you through the door. You don't have to take the job. Look them over. I mean, if you use your little voice, because no one else is going to use it for you.
Right.
And if they're a good fit, they're a good fit. If you get vibes that are good, go with it. Go use your instincts. But if you're sitting there in the lobby, you can sit in the lobby while you're waiting and just notice, observe, and look at the expressions. Look at see how things are organized and all, and put yourself in that environment. One of the best times to do that, actually, and I always used to schedule interviews later in the day, and people were leaving and all of that kind of thing. And it was interesting to see, some of the culturistic aspects of that too. But that's why I say, we're always all consumers as well.
Exactly. And there's so much you can determine just by hanging out. Sometimes I advise people to just sit in a parking lot of a place that you might want to work in and look at the expression on people's faces. What's happening? What's the vibe here as far as, are they looking excited? Are they going out in a way that demonstrates that, hey, they're really relieved to get the heck out of here.
Right.
And also when they are inside for an interview, to really pay attention to the little things, like what's on that person's desk, what do they have on the walls, how are things done around here, how are the offices assigned. You can always tell, are they all the big ones at the corner for the vice presidents, or so paying attention, gathering information about the fit of an organization's culture can be often the part that you have to just be creative and say, okay, this suggests that credentials are really important here. This suggests that, oh, hey, this is a family environment. They've got pictures of their kids, and so on. Go ahead.
Well, no, I mean, you can tell by the industry too. I mean, I work for the state. Well, the state is not warm and fuzzy. I mean, it is what it is. It's almost like a paramilitary organization. From job descriptions all the way straight through to your levels, the whole thing, who reports to whom, all the way to Sacramento. And you can be transferred at the beat of a drop of a hat. I had that happen to one of our veterans guys, and he was working down in Santa Barbara, and he was transferred to Eureka with 10 days notice, take the job or not. And that's just the way it is. Now, if you go to work for a smaller company, there's a lot more flexibility usually. And even the smaller companies, especially if they're family owned, then you're going to know you're only going to get to a certain level unless something happens. So, you have to go ahead and look at the overall situation, the overall segment that you're going into, and really, is it something that you want to deal with or not?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Welcome, Morgan.
Hi, Deb.
We need to catch you while you can. How much time do we have with you?
We got time. Atusa's watching the baby right now, so I've got time. Don't worry about me.
I think most of you know Morgan Boyd, but those of you that don't, he's our new director of the Veterans Service Office. And did I say that correctly?
That's correct. Yeah, that's close enough. Department head for it does. It's not technically a directorship, it's department head position. County Veteran Services Officer.
Good. Well, Morgan's going to tell a little bit about his story soon, but I just want to welcome you. We've gone through the transition process. We're not quite done yet, but we've talked about the importance of doing a lot of self-reflection and being able to translate that military experience into language that our Central Coast employers can understand and really see the value in what you're bringing with you. Morgan's going to tell a little bit more about his story in just a little bit, but unless you get Paige, let me know, and then we'll grab you right away. Along with doing an audit about who you are and what you have to offer, you want it to be something that's going to get you excited. You want this job to be something that reflects who you are today. And so I encourage my clients to take some time to actually do a personal visioning process as far as what is it that I want to create with my life right now today. there are different visions for, family, but there's also our visions for the kind of work that we want to have. For me personally, again, I had this vision. I know there's a theme, a very core value that I have, and that is to connect communities, to build communities. And I did that inside organizations. I've done that with volunteer work. And now I'm able to help doing that with a collaborative as far as building a sense of community. To me, that's what brings me joy. And I pay attention to that, because if I find myself volunteering in a place that I don't feel is reflective of my personal vision, then I'm not going to stay there very long. So I have some fun with this kind of an exercise with veterans. I often have them do a visual vision where they will create a picture out of, Alan, do you remember the last vision that we worked on together with a female client that she actually brought in a big poster board? She was sort of a craft kind of person and came from the military and was trying to decide about next steps. So I asked her to think in terms of, okay, what's really important to you today, and bring it to life visually. There's something that happens with the brain that when we can visualize and bring it to life, that it's more likely to happen. There's research that backs that up. But do you remember what it looked like, Alan? I mean, I have it in my head, but I want to see if it made an impression on you.
Well, yeah, that matter of fact, I have one veteran. Let me just show this, if I can find it here. Where did I put it? This is about 5 or 6 years ago. I don't know if you can see this or not, but it's a painting, and she was an oil painter. She had been a combat medic, and she was in the Army from 2004 to 2009, and she painted that, and she gave it to me. And I didn't understand why. She just sat down and she said, the background are dark days and you're the feather.
Oh,
and I have kept that ever since. Anyway, she became very successful in that kind of thing in another field, and got out of medicine for her own mental aspect. But I do recall the woman that you're talking about, and that image, I thought the image was striking just because it emanated deep from within her. And I don't know if I can really just adequately describe the image, so I'll just talk about it. But the image itself, when she showed it to us, I thought came right from the soul. And we've had other images like that with the voices, veterans' voices, with the art project and all of that kind of thing and everything else. And that you struck a chord there, because I think art and the arts themselves, as far as expression, as far as veterans are concerned, is extremely important, because it doesn't have to be verbal. It can be emotional, it can be visual, and they don't have to report to anybody. They don't have to say anything, but they just do it. And I think that what the point that you're bringing up with, I think her name was Cheryl, was absolutely, spot on. That was a good call.
It sort of gave her, this one stuck out so much to me, is that it was a lot of texture. She was a craft kind of person, and she used different pieces of material and buttons and this and that. And she brought this to life in a way that I was just very moved by it. And again, there is research to show that the more you can bring your vision to life and keep it out in front of you somewhere on your desk or on your wall, that it is more likely to actually happen. Dan, it's sort of like your writing. I mean, don't you feel that sort of drawn from the arts in many ways?
Absolutely. And it's almost as if we're kind of talking about art. And Alan, you mentioned art, almost looking backwards towards your experiences and making sense of them, like the woman did like the medic did with the black days and the dark days in the back, and then the light of the hope of the feather at the beginning, or in the front, in the foreground. That's much like what my writing was, and it was looking back through Iraq and looking back through the challenges of coming home and gaining perspective on that, telling my own story and understanding it from at a very personal level. But then, Deb, you're talking about taking that same concept and projecting it forward
Mhm.
And I think that's a really powerful tool to use, regardless of what medium you work in. If you have a creative aspect to you, and all of us do, and it's not something that our military service is likely to have really fostered. However, that's something to open yourself up to. Now that you're looking to transition, you're looking to move forward and move out of what may have been a very narrow existence.
Uh-huh.
Embrace your artistic side. Embrace something that gives you, we talked about passion a little bit. Creating art is a passion.
Mhm.
And it doesn't matter if it's it doesn't matter if it's growing vegetables in a little patch of ground behind your house, or if it's making oil paintings,
Mhm.
or any sort of artistic endeavor. If you're creating something, then you're an artist, and that's an important aspect of yourself that should be kind of let loose at this transition phase, and let it go wherever it wants to go. And you never know where it might lead you. And that brings you to the point where the longer you allow that passion to drive you, the better chances you'll have that your passion will actually garner you a paycheck as well.
Absolutely, and that's the rich value of a visioning process, and it doesn't have to be a formal process. I've had people take, I used to do outdoor team building and take groups for walks and have them pick up symbols from the forest that represented what's really important to them. And having dialogue about that, it's a bonding thing. People are visual learners often, and they will learn and remember the visioning part more than a manual they get to know their colleagues better too. I love to do team visioning because I've done this locally with political groups, with organizations, to create a shared vision, non-verbally, but through art, through picture, through just symbols. So it's powerful, and I bring it up because if you can, as you're exploring organizations, ask yourself the question, encourage your people that you work with to ask the question, will this organization's culture bring me closer to what's really important to me, that personal vision that I have in my heart? Because if it does, it's a pretty good indicator that this is going to be something that is worth waking up for in the morning. And it can help you model to other people, like your children. There's a lot of research that shows that young people that can have some fun with the visioning piece are more likely to get closer to that goal. So it's all part of the gathering information about yourself and helping our veterans really reflect on some of those anchors, like the core vision, because that's something that's not going to change. It may change some, but chances are it won't be that much different. Okay, in the spirit of moving forward, having too much fun with this. Okay, so we've talked about, okay, how can we prepare our veterans and ourselves for making a transition that has the impact that brings us joy and gets us closer to that vision. We've talked about the importance of the letting go. First of all, we've talked about the importance of having a structured support system that can ground you when you are making changes, whether that be friends, neighbors, core values, and doing the hard work of preparation, gathering information, making sure that you can present yourself in a way that represents who you are today, not who you were before the military, but who am I today? What can I do to offer this organization or this new opportunity the best of myself? And that to me is a gift that we all as professionals can offer our veterans and our families as far as making next steps, taking risks, being grounded in the core values and the sense of vision that, hey, we might get off track a little bit. This may not be a perfect job, but it's going to help me get closer to the next opportunity. So I think we're going to stop about here. Did you want to, Dan, did you want to add any final thoughts before we move forward? Next, we're going to be hearing from Kate. She's going to tell us more about what they're doing at the American Indian Center.
So I think my final thought with this phase, Deb, is just I'd like to echo something that my uncle told me when I was getting ready to leave active duty. He said, "You don't have to know what you're going to do for the rest of your life. You just have to know what you're going to do next."
There you go.
And that's something that, he definitely lived that. He's been jumping through various careers his entire life, and he finds a new passion and he goes for it. And that's a great way to experience life. So if I could just leave with that thought, I think I will. It's just, you don't have to know what you're going to do forever, just what you're going to do now.
That's important for our veteran community to understand. Morgan, you might want to speak to that. I think you've also read one of Dan's books. How do you respond to what he just said?
Well, you know me well, Deb, and you know that in terms of my transition, I have not followed a linear path. Like I think a lot of us veterans think we're going to get out and get that next job because we were great servicemen and women, and things are going to go exquisitely in our favor, and that is certainly not the case. At some point I'll get into, everything, but I just would find something that I had a spark of a passion in, and then I developed it in my way from there.
Mm-hmm.
And then it ultimately led me to the position where I am now. And it took a while, but you just don't lose faith or hope, and you just keep moving forward. And it'll be okay. We see a lot of veterans that miss their time in the service, and they really want to hold on to that, but and you should, but need to move forward and think about what your life is going to be. And I'll probably be like Dan's uncle, and have a plethora of careers, because as soon as I lose passion in something, I know that it's time for me to move on. And that's kind of what I do. So.
Thanks, Morgan. And we're going to hear more from Morgan and Josh in just a little bit. They'll be joined by another client of mine, Donna Basio, and to tell more about their own stories and transition. But I want to turn it over to Kate, because I think that the more we can help our fellow veterans understand that they're not alone in this transition process, that there are resources, they can trust themselves, trust others, but also have help with guidance through transition. So I think we have a very solid community of helping services here in San Luis Obispo. But Kate, tell us more about what you do. We've just recently learned about your organization and the services that you provide, and it's pretty cool.
So I am the career counselor, educational counselor, resource advocate, and I do supportive services for the Southern California American Indian Resource Center. So I actually provide a lot of services. Our nonprofit covers a specific demographic of people. We cover American Indians, Native Alaskans, and Native Hawaiians, also known as Kanaka Maoli. And we cover all the different counties that I talked about earlier. We do supportive services that range from things like paying people's union dues to helping people pay their utilities, especially now with the pandemic happening and people either losing their jobs or losing hours, and or with the Zoom schooling. We now offer things like a pilot program for tutoring for kids. And then, of course, all of our supportive services. And as a career counselor for SCARE, we do everything like you guys have been talking about, like resume building, cover letters, how to interview, the correct clothing to wear, And we provide some of those things like clothing, as well as transportation. So if someone doesn't have a car, or their car's in the shop, we'll pay for their car to get out of the shop. We'll pay for a bus pass, things that they might have a little bit of a harder time getting. And specifically with our demographic that we work with, I know that we have a lot of Native Americans, a few Native Alaskans, a few Native Hawaiians, but mostly Native Americans running throughout all of the counties that we work with. And I'm hoping that through talking to you guys and spreading the word that we can maybe try to get some of those Native Americans to embrace some of the help that we provide, because I know it's hard to ask for help. I know it's hard. A lot of people don't want to go out there and reach out to us. So my goal is for people to be aware that we do provide these opportunities for you. We do provide incentives for getting employment. We do provide incentives for going back to school, getting an education, getting certifications. And we do pay for some of those things. So it might be that little stepping stone you need in order to do a little better and maybe get out of whatever the rut is that you may be in. I just want to know that we're here, and we're here to provide any help we can. And as a resource advocate, I've looked into many other areas and other organizations that also work with the same demographic. So if we can't help you, we will find someone who can.
Thank you. Well, I'm curious, do you have many veterans? I understand have been so many American Indian veterans out there, but I haven't heard that their services until we met you. So
you know what, there are a few services in California. It's harder to get because they are federal. So you have to show that you are in a federalized tribe. With our organization, you can be a California or state tribe member, or you can be a federal. So it kind of opens the doors for more people. I know that being the satellite office, we're kind of new to the area, to all the counties that we are now listing. And we had been around in San Diego since before 1987. So that's, I don't think they've reached out as much as they should have to veterans. And so I've been kind of promoting that for our further south location. Hopefully they will go out there and do a little digging. But on my end, I think it's limited. It really is. And specifically for a lot of the tribes in California, specifically in Sonoma and those areas, most of those people who are part of tribes are in state tribes. And so if you try to go to an office, it's going to be, oh, sorry, we only help you with federal. You're not federal, we can't help you. So on our end, it's like showing if you can show your lineage, like let's say it's your great, great, great grandparent. If you can show your lineage, we can help you. If you are, if you have a card, if you're a card member, we can help you. But we kind of open the doors a little bit more because we are grant funded, and we get grants from California. We get grants from the federal government. We get a bunch of different grants. It opens the doors for possibilities of helping more people. So that's the whole goal, is to just help as many people as we can. But the first step is for people to actually come to us and ask for the help. And I think that's the hardest part, is for people to come and ask for help. So,
well, we're, I'm just excited about this. I personally am working with one of your new clients that I referred there, and she's actually American Hawaiian. So is that how you say it? I believe so.
Yes, Native Hawaiian or Kanaka Maoli. Yeah, that's okay. Traditional way.
And so she's quite excited because she didn't realize there was that kind of support for not just herself, but her children. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Anybody have questions or remarks or observations for?
Hey, Kate, Alan, hey, do you work with a Shumash?
Yes, we do.
You do? Okay, because they were on earlier today, and, employment as far as the resorts, all of that kind of thing and everything else. And they've hired probably about 8 or 9 veterans for me. And I'm just going to throw this out there. How involved do you want to get with the collaborative?
I would like to get very involved as much as I possibly can.
This is why I'm asking you. I come from a background, and but the Native American population, as far as I'm concerned, is something that the collaborative really needs to be allied with, and we've done a pretty good job with the Shumash. As far as other tribes, all of that kind of thing and everything else is kind of, yeah, not there. So I like somebody who has a Native American background to represent the collaborative to reach out.
Mm.
Yes.
And I just think,
I
I'm
would
sorry,
love to.
guys, I'm diverting here. I'm sorry, Deb.
Hey, we
But
gotta
I
wrap
just
it
want
up.
to take the opportunity to embrace her. I'll never see her again. So, you know what I mean? So I'd like to offline when we get a chance this week. So I'd like to talk to you about that. Would that be okay?
Yes, that would be fine with me.
Yeah, that'd be wonderful. Okay, sorry, guys. I'll shut up now.
No, yeah, you gotta grab as while you can. But what's interesting, I think now that we are all using Zoom, all of a sudden we can connect with people like Kate and learn about her and other resources that we ordinarily would not have been able to reach out to. And that just helps all of our veterans to be able to say, hey, I know you can't come here, but we've got this resource right there in Kate's area. You're actually physically where, Kate, now?
I'm physically in Ventura. We are in our office 3 days a week, usually from 8 to 12, but it kind of varies depending on if people show up randomly.
Mhm.
But I do want to put out there, because this is a veterans organization, that we actually get dibs. They are the first come, first serve. They are the first ones in line. They get everything before anybody else. And that we will be having a food drive coming up too. So that's something. We give out gift cards for grocery services. So again, first come, first serve, but veterans always get dibs.
Okay, that's good to know.
Kate, why don't you put your contact information into chat? I know we have somebody with us from the Santa Barbara area that would perhaps like to follow up with you and speak to the veterans in Santa Barbara. So if you just put your, it will be on our website, but if you put your chat or put your contact here, then she can just pull it off the chat.
Paul, did you hear what I said to her?
Alrighty.
As far as being an ambassador for the collaborative, representing as far as Native Americans is concerned?
I did, yes.
Yeah, okay, just want to make sure.
Excellent. Excellent idea.
Other questions for Kate or things that you're curious about?
Any questions?
Dan, when you were in the Marine Corps, did you have any Native Americans serving with you?
So none that come to mind.
Yeah.
A lot of Native Americans keep it quiet. So I'm just putting that out there.
Oh, that's interesting.
But I did find out I was doing a lot of research, Kate, and when I was writing my books, and I found this book by Tom Holm, and it's
Strong Hearts. Yeah.
Strong Hearts. Are you aware of this one?
I've heard of this. I've never read it, but I have heard of it.
Okay, yeah, Strong Hearts, Wounded Souls, and it's Native American veterans of the Vietnam War. And it was an eye-opener. And when I talked about cultural support for returning warriors, that's described in some of the first-person narratives in Tom Holm's book, as he interviewed a bunch of Vietnam veterans and what they went through when they returned home to their tribes, to their Native American tribes, and it was an eye opener for me.
It's also very different when you look at the people that are going back to a reservation versus going back to an urban center. So we do have a couple older gentlemen who are Vietnam vets that come in regularly to use the computers, but one of them did live on a reservation. He came back to that, and it was a very different experience from the other gentleman who came back to a city. So I think it'd be kind of cool to read the book now, because I've only heard about it. I've never actually went to the library and went to look it up, but I'm going to have to.
My last 3 years in the service, I was a recruiter in New Mexico and Albuquerque. And every year they had in Gallup, which is south of Albuquerque, they had the North American Native Indian ceremonial at the fairgrounds. And they had 27 nations there. And it was interesting because I was still in the Navy, still wearing a uniform, and Vietnam and all of that. And I had 11 Native American Vietnam vets come up to me. And I spent an evening with them that ended about 4 o'clock in the morning, but maybe 6. But it was interesting to get their perspective and what they were fighting for, why they did it, and the whole thing. And people don't realize it's a different perspective entirely. And I just had so much respect for what they did, because in some ways they felt it wasn't their war, but they had to go ahead and do it anyway because it was their country. And 7 of them were volunteers, the other 3 were draftees. And I just thought, well, good for you guys. You know, it was that was eye-opening in some ways.
I wanted to not let you get away before I remind people that Dan has not only a couple books out, but was it the first book, After Action, that is now on the Commandant's recommended reading list? Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct, Deb. Yeah, General Berger just revamped the Marine Corps' professional reading program, and I was honored and flattered that my first book, After Action, was named to that list. So still kind of digesting it, but it feels really good to have that sort of institutional support from the Marine Corps.
What is the premise?
So After Action is my memoir of Iraq in 2003 and 4. I flew Cobra gunships during the invasion, and then was back as a forward air controller with Marine Corps Special Operations Command Detachment 1 in 2004. And so the premise of the book is it really starts about 5 years after my combat tour, when I had a moment when I realized I wasn't doing as well as I thought I was. And I had a choice to make, whether I was going to stuff it all away back into the box where I'd put it and try and hide it, or if I was going to face it and try and understand what it was that came home with me. And so that turned into the writing process. And After Action walks through the invasion phase of Iraq and my experiences as a Cobra gunship pilot, flying from Kuwait all the way up to north of Baghdad, over the invasion phase, and what that was like to me, and unpacking those experiences and unpacking the emotions from those experiences and putting them together again, because as anybody who's served knows, you compartmentalize in the moment and you strip away the emotions and responses. And what I had to do, which I didn't know at the time, but which was what writing did for me, was it allowed me to reattach those emotions to the events that gave them birth and allow them to kind of sit somewhere in a chronological order in my mind, as opposed to slipping out at inopportune moments. So it was a very cathartic exercise.
That is excellent. I'm handling the health aspect for the resource fair on Thursday, and we're covering things just like that, things that are cathartic for our veterans.
Nice.
And as a Marine Corps mom, it gave me great comfort knowing that my son had friends like Dan to hang out with. And I don't know about you, Dan, but my son Colin can start a party anywhere in the world, and with all the buddies that you make there. So that support system is so important. And
well, and that feeds into what we're talking about here, because our squadron has just started over the last several months, has started doing Saturday Zoom calls. So it's whoever's around just drops in on a Saturday Zoom call, have a couple beers and chat with folks. And actually last Saturday, I was Colin was there as we were chatting, and I told him I was hanging out with his mom and dad, and he laughed.
But this is important stuff, because as military parents, it's pretty lonely sometimes, but knowing that our son or daughter who's serving has that kind of support system does bring comfort and helps our own transition as we move forward and say, okay, what am I learning about myself on all this? And maybe I better get busy or get my mind off of this.
I'm a military parent too.
Okay. Who's
2 boys.
All right.
All
Seems
right.
like that's a tradition that is our collaborative is celebrating and honoring. just to bring some closure to this whole focus on transition, because we do have some other stories. Morgan's going to be back, and Josh, and my other coachee, Donna, will be on soon. And we're going to have a little time in between too with some financial planning. But I wanted to just go back to the model of transition and encourage you all to be patient with change and think about change as an event is one thing. But if you can think of making changes as a process of transition that does involve really honoring the past, reflecting on it, letting go of what fits, and hanging on and trusting what it is that you have to offer and going forward, can really ease that shock of the transition. And you know, I think we can use this model not just with finding jobs or employment, but entering new neighborhoods. As parents, we can use this kind of a model too, to say, okay, I'm a different person today and my children are different people. The letting go process is part of it. The exploring and understanding the new situation for our sons or daughters takes some time to really get it, and then to celebrate with them about the successes that they've had, and feeling good about what we've done as parents or friends, family, to support this transition for our loved one. So I want to, I'm not saying goodbye yet. We're going to move forward. Did you want to add some more, Dan, before we move on? Because I was expecting a couple of other of our veteran clients, and also, yeah. So what we'd like to do is bring this whole transition process to life, to hear some other experiences. And Josh has been gracious enough to offer his time and his experience. So we'll let him talk a little bit about his own transition and what has helped him along the way, and any advice he might want to give to others.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Joshua Wright. I am now a general manager for Motel 6, and I have been doing this for about a year. I did not start here, so it was a process to get to this point, and it was not an easy process. I got out of the Army in 2019, and my transition was horrible. Yes, I'm going to give it to you straightforward. It was a horrible process for me, simply because I didn't plan enough. And then being in the military, I now see that we were sheltered individuals in comparison to what's going on in the world today. You wake up every morning, you knew on the 1st and the 15th that there was a paycheck in your bank account, and then you got out and it was not there anymore. So I had to make some changes. So of course, now that I'm out of the military, I now see the different things I could have done better. And I started writing a list, and it almost ended up as a paragraph or an essay. So I had to tone it down a bit, but I'll start my first note, and it was ensure that you clear your base properly. I tried to skip around when I was getting out with the clearing process, but there's a lot of valuable information that the base is trying to offer you prior to getting out of the military. And because it's such a long process and you have so many things going on with your battle buddies, you don't tend to take it seriously. But that is a main priority when you're first clearing or you're starting this transition piece, is to go to all those stations, especially medical. Those are very important. I think, Jim, you said you're in the health part of it, so you're going to talk about that. But it was a big deal when I got out that I did go through those pieces and take them seriously. And then what do you want to do? What do you want to do when you get out of the military? What is your goal? If you just get out, then that's how it's going to feel. You don't really have a purpose. And the military provided us a purpose. Hey, this is your job. This is what you do every day. And then you had that leadership to provide you direction and goals and purpose. And when you get out, you don't have that. You have what you're planning to do with your life, and is it serious? Is it something you really want to do? So figure out what you want to do. Does your current job in the military transition well? In the Army, I was a 31 Bravo and 11 Bravo. I was an MP. And I did not want to deal with police activity any longer. Just with today's environment, I had decided I had enough after 15 years getting out as an E7. I just did not want any more police activity. I dealt with it in Afghanistan twice. And I was like, I want to do something different. I'm tired. I'm tired of kicking indoors. My knees hurt. I want to do some different things. So I made some changes. And it was funny how the changes came to fruition for me. I just took a job at a construction company. And Deb, I remember how you were talking about your soft and your transferable skills, right? And just being on time in the right uniform in the right place made these guys feel like I was gold. It was like, wow, you're here on time, you're ready to work, you got your tools. And they just started moving me up in life. And it was just like, oh, what? This is not normal. This is something new. And they're like, no, we've had to call guys to get to work on time, or go give them a ride. You have a vehicle, you're here on time, and you're ready to work. So those are the things that were beneficial at the beginning for me once I transitioned out of the base and into the civilian sector, just doing what I was taught.
It must have built some trust in you that you were in fact doing the right thing, the right direction, that you have a lot to offer, and to be able. How did you actually name your skills in unmilitary language?
I have no idea. I think that when I was a platoon sergeant, I kind of gave my guys what I expected, right? So I kind of lived them, and it just transferred well with what I accepted. I realized that the goals that I had set for myself to be in a different position couldn't happen right away. So I accepted something interim of getting there, stepping stones to get where I wanted to be. Mm-hmm. And it worked out well for me. I don't know if that will always be the case for everyone, but I did accept something lesser to get to where I wanted to be. And I think that was the hardest part for me. And it caused me a little anxiety because I said to myself, well, I was a sergeant first class in the Army, and I'm now a helper in the construction site. You know, it was weird. Yeah. And I was going through a bit of anxiety with the transition, but I had to understand, okay, Josh, let's bring it back down. You've gone through this. You were once a private. So let's go back to private land. And then I started to realize it feels good not being in charge of anyone else for a little bit. Right? You know, I don't have to worry about getting in trouble for something someone else is doing, right? So I went through phases.
That was part of your letting go process, as far as the need to letting go of the prestige of having a high level position for a while in order to just say, okay, this is right for me today. And I give yourself permission to just say, hey, I need a little breathing room. I'm going to sort out who I am today and go from there.
Awesome. That is exactly what it was. So the next thing that I put down that helped me, someone helped me get a resume together to translate it into what a civilian enterprise organization would understand. You know, I could definitely train the Kosovo Army in combat skills and rifle marksmanship, and then the person interviewing me is like, well, there's no rifles here. You know, how is that going to affect change in this organization? So I went out and looked for other people or organizations that help with resume writing, And I sent them all of my NCOERs, and I sent them all of my experience and my current college courses that I had at the time. And they set me down and say, this is going to be a lot of work, Josh. Give us some time. And we got it together. And they helped me get 2 resumes together. One for just a simple resume. And then another one was a federal type resume where it dictated all of the result, or put out all the results that I did or made and accomplished while in the military, and translated it over to what it meant. So platoon sergeant went over to management of personnel, and then I started adding how many people are managed, and then equipment. You know, if you're going to manage a property, you have equipment that's involved, and there's a dollar amount associated to that equipment, and that helped tell different organizations, hey, this guy managed $5 million worth of vehicles. He can manage this property as well. So that helped me a lot with having that resume, because it translated well. And I recommend everyone transitioning to take that advice, to get that resume spot on. That's your ticket in. That's your expression to whatever organization you're trying to apply for. This is who I am, and I'm not always combat. I can be customer service if need be.
It sounds like you sort of gave yourself permission at the same time to trust that you did have so many transferable skills and that they were valued.
They were, and don't get me wrong, I had some difficulties because I have a way of talking. I remember when I first started with Motel 6, and I was an assistant manager at the time, and everyone just kept saying, "You talk loud. Why do you talk so loud?" You're different, and I started getting anxiety, like, I just want to be normal, and it's like, I'm not talking loud. This is just how I am.
Did they ever tell you? Did they ever tell you about writing styles? Because when I got out, you write completely differently in the military.
All these acronyms. Why are you?
Well, no, not just acronyms, but the style itself.
Mm-hmm.
We're very purposeful. Get to the point. Civilian writing is somewhat passive.
Bottom line up front. Yep. My director of operations, she'll tell me all the time, you're going to give it straight to me, and then that's it. And I learned how to add a good morning to that, and just to dress it up a bit.
And a joke.
Right? Here and there. So those are some of the things that I had to work on. I had to say, well, Josh, you're not directing a platoon to go in 3 different directions. Let's tone it down a bit. You're scaring the people here. Or, you don't have to be as forceful. There's something here, the power of the pen. If I have an issue with a employee, just do it right up. But back then it was a little bit different, especially being an instructor, drill instructor, being in the 82nd Airborne Division. That's a whole different world. And I had to learn that that's a difference. How we talk, how we communicate, how forceful we are when we don't need to be. That transition was very important for me, and I had to learn that. And if you listen and you take that constructive criticism well, you'll benefit from it.
Josh, did you also get your bachelor's degree in the military or after the military?
So I was going to make a correction to the news, but I don't have my master's yet. I'm almost done with my bachelor's. So I have 5 credits. I actually filled out my graduation documents recently, and I'll be going to DC probably about February timeframe, and then graduating then with my bachelor's.
Any advice that you would give our audience as far as those folks that are still in the military or that are freshly out of the military, as far as some maybe first steps or things that you would do differently?
In reference to school or?
Anything, just in making the transition from military back to civilian life.
There are so many different programs out there that the military is involved in that's not getting to the troops.
Okay.
I remember hearing about a program after the fact to where you can intern with a company for 6 months while you're still in the military. And a lot of these soldiers don't know this information. They have no clue. So I've done a little bit of my part by just messaging some of my friends and saying, hey, this is out there, spread the word. Because if you could intern with a company prior to getting out of the military, you're still getting paid, still have your benefits. And now you're working with a company that now knows your work ethic. And when you transition out, that could be a potential shoe in to a next job. And you have so much transition anxiety. So just look up all the programs, get with these resources that are out there and talk, ask a lot of questions. We have a tendency as military to listen because we're so used to being told what to do, but ask questions, ask a lot of questions. What are my options?
Great advice. Awesome.
That program's been around for about 10 years too. It's been around for a while.
Yes.
And I'm surprised it's not as well known.
So I want to thank you so much, Josh, for joining us today, and hopefully we can stay in touch, and perhaps you'll consider joining the collaborative.
Definitely. I just need to get with my company. I know we have a transitioning veterans program. We work with Operation Next Step. And I don't know if legally I can be a face of anything yet. So let me talk with them, and then I'll definitely get back with Alan. Alan, I've heard about you so many different times. I've never met you, but I definitely need to get with you and talk with you soon.
Well, thank you so much. You should like my picture in the post office. That's good. I appreciate that. No, thank you so much. I look forward to meeting you too. And Deb has mentioned some things and that kind of thing. It's truly an honor to meet you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
We have one more story, real life story, from one of a veteran's family member. My colleague Donna is going to talk about her own experience, and this is a very brave young woman. She has been holding down the fort for many years, and has actually she's rather somewhat new to this area, but through the help of organizations like Allen's and other services, she has in fact demonstrated the strength that she has in being flexible and taking the time and the resources she needs to take care of herself as well as her children and family. So Donna, we're going to turn it over to you to tell your story as much as you care to talk about, and we're good. We've got a lot of support here, people that care about you.
Thank you. So well, aloha and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Donna Lynn Visay Basio. I was an Air Force active duty and reserve wife of nearly 28 years. Can you all hear me?
Yeah, you sound great.
Yes, we can.
I can hear you, I just can't see you anymore.
I can see you, Donna, you're good.
Okay. I was an Air Force active duty and reserve wife of nearly 28 years and now a veteran spouse of 6 years. I'm originally from Hawaii, born and raised in Kauai and Oahu. We have 4 kids, a grandson, and a wonderful son-in-law. First and foremost, I would like to express my deepest gratitude to Alan McCain and Deb Humphreys for their wonderful years of guidance and strong support since 2015. If it wasn't for both Alan and Deb and my Hawaii family / Ohana, I wouldn't be where I am today with my 4 kids. I am forever grateful to both of them. Having to deal with numerous changes as a military family since more than 20 years ago, now a veteran family, has been very challenging at times. My kids and I can never forget the hardship of having to deal with the big change in their father since becoming a veteran. Searching for help for a homeless veteran family with a veteran spouse and 4 kids and not knowing anyone. Location was new. Everything was new to my family and I. One of the most difficult situations is that my husband had no job to fall back on. He was completely unaware and depressed of our current situation at the time. I was alone and overwhelmed with all the responsibilities. He practically gave up everything that he was in the Air Force for more than 25 years. I remember clearly on our last day of moving off base housing and heading to San Luis Obispo County. After retiring from the Air Force, he told me that he had no money. Everything was used for the move. I'll have to take over. He had no plans on how we're going to survive. Not knowing where we're going to live, what our source of future income. Unfortunately, I had no job either. I gave up my career in education when I became Wally's wife and mother of our 4 kids. He didn't want me to work, and I was unable to further my college education. I feared for my future, most importantly, our kids. It was the most scariest feeling. I prayed to God daily for guidance that will somehow see better days. Everything back then felt impossible. There were times I just wanted to give up, but thinking back about what we overcame as a military family for more than 20 years with Wally's numerous deployments and Air Force missions, we will somehow survive the unknown. That's when I realized I needed to step up to the plate for a better life for my family, mainly for our kids. My 2 youngest at the time was about 4 and 6 years old. One of them was special needs, and the other graduated from special needs. And the second eldest was overwhelmed with her first year of high school. And my eldest on her second year of college with hardly any income and living day to day as a veteran family. Life was so tough emotionally and physically. It's a place you don't want to see yourself in. Thanks to God, I began to see the light in my life in 2015. I connected with the job center in San Luis Obispo and was introduced to Alan McCain and Neoni. They both introduced me to Deb Humphrey. My life began to change for the better. Their guidance, emotionally and professionally, helped me get a job in the healthcare field with Rest Care and Compass Health. Balancing 2 companies, working nearly 72 to 80 hours a week to get my family out of the rut to a better future. I was able to attain my cosmetologist and nursing license with their help. I hope to further my education in the very near future. The 3rd year of living in SLO County, I was able to purchase my own home with my inheritance and strong support of my Hawaii ohana. I now reside with my kids half of the week, and the other half of the week the kids are with me. I are separated since a year and a half ago. We're still married, 31. Money was so tight, I sacrificed and sought help from food banks to whoever could help us survive daily. I couldn't see myself deeper and deeper in the hole. I prayed and prayed for a better life. I thank God with all my heart and soul for blessing me with Ellen and Deb, along with my family in Hawaii, for being there since day one. I am forever thankful to all of them. Love you all, and may God bless and keep you all always. As for the organization that has been a big help to my family and I during our months of hardship and dealing with all these change as a veteran after retiring from the Air Force, is Ellen McCain. Deb Humphreys. Should I mention the agency, Deb?
Yeah, sure.
Alan McCain, he's EDD Career Advisor at the SLO Job Center, supporting veterans and veterans' families. Deb Humphreys from Wayne Point Coach Life, supporting veterans and veteran families. Dave Humphrey, Allen Hancock College Professor, Director, Guidance on Furthering College Education. HUD and VASH, a collaborative program between HUD and VA, combines HUD housing vouchers with VA supportive services to help veterans who are homeless and their families find and sustain permanent housing. Department of Social and Health Services for health insurance and other support services. SAFE, it's called SAFE, Family Resource Center, helping families in need. Salvation Army for their food services. Home Depot and Habitat for Humanity, referred by Deb Humphreys, who's helped me where I am today.
Welcome back, everybody. Now I'm more than pleased to introduce our final guest, Morgan Boyd, current head of our local Veterans Services Center, husband and father of 4, and his former Army partner and now wife, Tusa Boyd. Welcome, guys. We're really delighted that you're here.
Thanks, Deb.
Both Morgan and Atusa took military to civilian transition support seriously by seeking out appropriate resources and support. I've had the honor of coaching both of them on and off over the number of years, and they truly, to me, represent the fact that transitions are ongoing and they're not over with yet, folks, even with a new baby. So it's my pleasure to introduce Morgan and Atusa, and we'll hear from them about their many transitions. Okay.
All right. Thanks, Deb. I appreciate you having us on. Boy, so military transition, I mean, it's really probably the single most important part of somebody's military career, to be honest with you, because it really sets the stages for what's going to happen later on for the rest of your life. And for me, my separation from the military came as quite a surprise. I ended up being medically retired for different injuries I'd sustained over the years through my 12 and a half years of service and 2 combat tours. I was Army reconnaissance in the cavalry. And when I got out, starting my transition, like many, you feel a great sense of loss. You don't know, you're losing your brotherhood and your sisterhood. You just don't know what the future holds. Your pay is most likely going to be cut significantly unless you're one of the lucky ones to move right into a position post-separation, which is often not the case for many of our soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines, if you will, service members. So for me, I think it's important that veterans simply humble themselves and seek help. It's okay. It's okay. You can be as salty or you can just be the toughest service member out there. You're going to need help. You're not going to do it on your own. If you do, and you do it successfully, I applaud you in that, but most of us need help. And whether it's employment services or for many of us seeking behavioral health support, it all integrates into a healthy transition. And one of the most significant parts, and at least for myself and my transition and my time since then, is paying it forward and giving back to our brothers and sisters. Get out there in your veteran communities, spend time. You don't have to spend money. There's a million things that you can do. Just be around with your brothers and sisters, and eventually that will hopefully parlay into like me, a career in helping our veterans.
I remember when you opened up your family farm to returning veterans early on when you came back, and I thought that, I mean, that we know that was healthy back then, and some of those veterans are still farming there at the Gable farm.
That's great. I mean, like was mentioned in the previous videos or interviews, don't get out expecting to jump right into your forever career. Be flexible and just know that build yourself to where you want to be. I've been out since 2014. It's almost 2021. And just this year, I got the job that I'm, hallelujah, I got what I wanted. It took perseverance and you just can't give up. You just have to keep moving forward. Just like those long ruck marches you used to have to go on. You just put one foot in front of the other and ultimately you get to your goal. And it's really important. And I've done a lot of stuff, and we can talk about what I've done over the years post-separation in terms of what I've done. But Deb, I have, ever since I got out, I continuously tied myself to what I do is helping my community or helping my veterans. Every single job I have has been to help others. And that's what got me through the military as well, is I'm serving my nation and now I'm serving my community. And I'm super proud of that. I'm talking too much like I always do. So maybe.
No. I just want to add one thing, is that you also prepared yourself well when you got back. You went back to school a couple times, and you were a great model for other veterans, rather than, some veterans don't have that luxury, but to jump into school because they have to work, and that's great. You did both. You did the work, but you also found the right time to go back to school.
Never stop. I never stop educating yourself. It doesn't matter if you're in a technical field, be a master at that field. If you decide to go through a vocational training program and become an electrician or a plumber, continue to educate yourself and be the best around. Just like you were in the military, you always worked hard to be the best at be the best at what you could be at your doing, and you never stop. So I get it. We're all busy. We all worked. I worked full time, was creating a program, writing grants for free, and was getting a master's degree. It can be done. Is it a lot of long nights and stress? It is, but keep putting your feet, one foot for the other, and you will reach your goals eventually. You just can't give up.
Thank you. Matusa, you look so peaceful there with the baby. It's just a beautiful sight.
I guess I have to. She's laying on me.
Okay, well, we can't wait to hear your story. Tell us more about your story.
Well, I double pretty much most of the things Morgan said. It definitely wasn't an easy transition out. As he said, it was a surprise to get out of military medically at early, like young age, and thinking like, am I broken? Am I not good enough anymore? So it wasn't easy mentally and physically, but it happened. So I would say it wasn't easy at all to transition out, because you think you prepare yourself for a lifetime career, and then you're surprised after a few years your career is cut off and you have to start looking for something new that you've been disconnected from for a while. Civilian life is different than military life. Everybody knows that. Expectations, connections, everything is different. So you basically start from zero. But I would say for me, it was a lot of a struggle, because I was trying to figure out what I want to do and what is the best for my life. I started going back to school, and then I realized, no, this is not going to work out for me. I'm not going to push myself because it's not mentally or emotionally helping me. It's more of setting me back, going back to school with a lot of younger kids who are probably 10 or 12 years younger than me, a different mindset, and a major that was not suiting my career for whatever reason I chose that. So I redirected myself and I went back to looking for work, and I realized with my background, I can do a lot more than what they want to take me in civilian life. So I had to tell myself I need to set my expectations low and get my foot in a door and start from less than what I can offer, just to, make this transition to happen, because it's not easy. You're not gonna be handed similar pay or similar class position as you had in military, because you're disconnected from that world. So I started from lower position. I proved myself to workforce, to people who I worked for, and in less than a year and a half, I got to management position. And I started as the lowest position in our, for instance, in our county. So that was my first foot at the door. I humbled myself, and I take pride for doing that, because if I was just sitting around and waiting for a position to come around that is in my level, let's say, it would have been many years, and it would have been a lot more stress and disappointments. But during that transition and getting the entry level job, I never stopped working hard and proving myself that what I'm capable of, what my education is. So I think veterans, they have that hard work and that strength in them. So I would say never give up. Don't get disconnected from your community. and don't think you're less than what you are. Uh, just work hard and prove yourself, and just
That
be.
really, I remember that patience that you demonstrated during that time and just trusting yourself enough because you knew what you could do. You had very responsible positions in the military, and just making the cultural transition from military and from your homeland here to the States. It's like what the stamina, the self-trust that took is just really very grounding.
Yes, definitely. And I learned a lot from my transition. Honestly, it was stressful at times, it was hard at times. I probably interviewed for different positions that I thought I'm good for more than 10 times. Maybe I had, I
Yeah.
don't know how many interviews I did.
Yeah.
For different reasons, I didn't get the position because in civilian life, people being in different positions, they know other employees, they want them, and I'm so new in this world, they don't know me so much.
Sure. Yeah.
I just have to put in my time and my effort, so it worked out.
What
But
did you have to let go of in order to move forward as far as letting go of attitudes or beliefs or habits or whatever?
being humble,
Mhm.
not setting my expectations too high, and just working hard and honest, and just being willing to help and assist wherever I can.
Mhm.
That way, I'm showing what I'm capable of, what kind of person I am, showing that I'm reliable, and presenting good quality work.
Mhm.
I would say. I
Well,
hope.
yeah, you're really describing a lot of the elements of building a foundation of
How
trust.
many
And
positions and how many different things I tried as I had meetings with you, and I expressed like, I want to go for this, I want to go for that. And how many times I've been turned around for different reasons. And I didn't give up. I tried to stay focused and know what I am, what I can present, and just keep going, keep
yeah,
pushing.
did you have a personal vision that you were sort of in the back of your head during this time of uncertainty as far as what your desired future here?
I did. I when I got out, I took a while to work on myself. I took about a year and so, a year and a few months to just physically and mentally, let's say, fix myself
Oh,
or
yeah.
improve myself because I did have experiences that nobody would like to have after military, and most of our sisters and brothers have that, and they suffer one way or the other. So
Mhm.
uh, I, I did take the time. I had the luxury of taking the time to work on myself, both physically and mentally,
Yeah,
and
great.
shame for that. There was a lot of up and downs and difficult times, but that was the very much needed time to do that, to get myself ready for a next step. And the next step was focusing on what I want to be and what I want to become in civilian life. I
Mhm.
didn't want to be just a retired, medically retired veteran sitting around, or just being beat up and not happy,
Mhm.
And to be honest, those struggles last a lifetime.
Yeah.
They go with you in
Mhm.
different stages of life. It's not like you take the time to work on yourself and your problems disappear, or they are gone. It's not.
Right. No, it's not, it's an ongoing transition. And I think that's one of the big messages we want to leave veterans with is that this is not a one-time event. There will be life transitions
And just
and mo-
learning that how to live with it and how to help yourself when you need to help. Just knowing when you need to seek help. And when you do seek help, what do you do to help yourself?
Mhm.
there's a lot of help out there, but if you don't want to help yourself, you don't get anywhere.
It is hard work.
Yes.
Morgan, I keep thinking about the images that come from nature about transitions and how we have to find support systems and grounding yourself in your values and so forth. I remember bringing the veterans out to your farm, as I mentioned, and what symbols do you think of in the agricultural community as far as things that help stimulate growth and help support during these times of uncertainty?
That's a really good question. I mean, we've had this conversation a lot, Deb. I am a huge advocate for getting outside and getting your hands in the ground, whether it's raising a garden or getting into the agricultural field. It is extremely supportive of veterans. There are some great organizations out there that will help you transition into agriculture. For me, I just pictured myself burying my hands in the ground. And, when I came back, I managed my family's organic farming operation. And so through that, I experienced a lot of healing. And with that, I developed the program in Cal Poly to help transitioning veterans and members of underserved communities and sustainable agriculture production. It's just, but even if gardening is not your thing, that's okay. But I highly recommend get outside and do something with veterans. If you're on the Central Coast, there are gyms that are owned by veterans. There's obviously several surfing organizations that support veterans that are amazing. There is healing to be had out in nature, whether you're going for long walks, collecting yourself. It doesn't matter. It's just being outside and being connected to your environment, I think, really is tremendously beneficial to the veteran. And if I can, I don't want to switch completely off this, but before we run out of time, I do want to bring something up, because obviously I'm in the field now where I work with many disabled veterans or veterans with disabilities. I implore our brothers and sisters, do not take the mindset that you are broken. Do not take the mindset that I am this disabled veteran and I am now, because I am broken, I cannot be of a benefit to my community. That is the furthest thing from the truth. Your community wants you. You might be a veteran with a disability or disabilities, but you are not a disabled veteran. Don't put it in your head that I'm disabled and now I need to sit at home and you're going to degrade that way. Humans need interaction. We need to get out and get connected to our community. It's extremely important, whether it's through, like I said, a surfing organization, perhaps your church, whatever you are into. Find other veterans in your community that have the same likes as you, and do it together. There are so many organizations out there. If you want to play softball, there's veteran softball leagues that are great.
Check out our website for the Veterans Collaborative. I'll give a little plug for that now too. But San Luis Obispo County has a Veterans Collaborative made up of so many different organizations that serve veterans and veterans themselves that are wanting to contribute, as you say, and take care of themselves and give back to others. So check out the website. It's not in my head right now, but Google it for San Luis Obispo Veterans Collaborative and join our Zoom meetings as well.
Yeah.
I want to thank you both. I mean, this is just really stunning to see together and with new baby, sort of the symbol of life going on and being productive. And your openness to share your story is very compelling. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having
Yeah,
us.
thank you, Deb. And I mean, I say this all the time, but I think I'll memorialize it since it's going up on the website. Tusa, I mean, myself, and I'm sure Tusa would share this sentiment. We would not be where we're at without your support. because you really helped us realize and actualize and goal set and move to those objectives and we have great, we're in leadership positions at the county now, and we just want to be there without you. So thank you.
Wow, well, that's an unexpected, wonderful surprise. Thank you so much. And Tusa, it's marvelous seeing you and baby, and we wish you all the best, both of you. And this will be posted on our website so that you can go back and look at the whole picture. We had 5 days of programming for veterans and their families. So those of you viewing this one did not see the earlier ones, do check it in, because we covered housing, education, healthcare, as well as transitions. So you both are models of making very effective transitions on an ongoing basis. It's not just in one event, is it?
No, no. Don't expect that you're gonna get that right job interview and your world is gonna fix itself.
Okay.
You gotta continue to fight, and that's okay. And reach out when you need help.
Thank you so much, and we'll be in touch.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.